All right, well, we are a Place Pictures. My name is Abraham Yehuda.
I'm Dylan Heron Sewell, and
Yeah, that's all you need to know. This video is over now. No, we are filmmakers here in Austin, Texas, and we are bringing you a video today of our top 5 films of this year. Since I am awesome, I'm gonna let Dylan go first because he isn't, and that's gonna help you understand mine.
you joke now, but you might agree with that when I tell my picks, because I think they're going to be maybe a few of them not popular.
Our pick for best films of 2024.
My number 5 is it's going to be M. Night Shyamalan's Trap. I didn't watch it in theater when it came out. The Trap is about a killer who they're setting up a trap for him. He goes to a concert with his daughter, and there's a big elaborate plan to trap him. The singer, the pop star, that's actually M. Night's daughter, real daughter, and it was based on a conversation that they had in real life about stuff like that. I forget the main theme of their conversation, but that's how it all started. And he was like, she actually is a pop singer. So he was like, well, what if I did a concert film in a different way, and we actually filmed your whole set? You made a whole album that we could use within this. To me, it was a very personal film. I think it felt like his most personal film. So it was neat to see it. And I don't know how he feels about himself, but from sort of the subject matter, it does seem like he views himself in like a very negative light. It's about like trauma, and it's about sort of kind of discovering your personal your personal issues. And I think throughout that whole movie, it's focused on the guy, and so you really see like him kind of discovering that he's a monster, and I thought that was really fascinating, and it shows glimpses of light within that. M. Night does that so well. So for us to be able to see that, I
M. Night is like a $1 million independent filmmaker.
yeah.
Like, I think he's one of those filmmakers that throughout his entire career, everything he did, whether he had a huge budget or not, he approached it like he's an indie filmmaker.
Oh yeah.
And that's actually something I respect about him, even though I hadn't liked every single film he's done. Why did you do Last Airbender? I understand why you produced The Last Airbender, but why did you direct it? That doesn't fit within your style. But I do have mad respect for Mr. M. Night, even though sometimes he just drives me crazy with the decisions he makes. My number 5 was surprisingly Alien Romulus. So I think you pronounce it Fed Alvarez. Forgive me if I'm butchering his name. But I remember when he got the opportunity to direct that Evil Dead movie based on a YouTube film that he did, which is actually pretty cool. I can tell he's a filmmaker that takes the content that he is making seriously. He wants to make a good film. So I kind of trusted it when I saw the trailer of the film. And also, it was just a good trailer. You know what I mean? That trailer was well done.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the trailer, after seeing the film, I feel like that trailer represented that film like perfectly. Because the trailer sold us that it was going to be aliens, it was going to be intense, it was going to be fun. And that's what Alien Romulus did. Like, as far as a summer movie, that was like one of the funnest summer movies that like I had the honor of watching. Like, it had all the feels. It was just like, what? Like, I remember that whole, because I think we were there together.
Yeah.
Remember the audience was like, whoa.
That was the coolest audience reaction I'd had in a long time. Like, just that reaction made that whole thing 100 times better too.
Yeah. I just felt like Alien Romulus was just, it was straight up a good movie time. It just had all the feel. So that's why that's my number 5. Some points of the film that I didn't really like. He didn't really explore that world. They didn't really give us anything super new, but it was still fun.
Oh yeah.
And I felt like that was effective. That's why that's my number 5.
It's a solid number 5. It's not on my list, but it's an honorable mention. It didn't push the story in any new way, and it almost did too much fan service, where there was a line that was directly ripped from the first one that didn't really. That's like the one thing that I really didn't like about it, was that one line that character says, and and it didn't. It was like, okay, well, this is obviously a reference. It's so on the nose that it kind of ruined it for me. But I like that director. I think he's really good. But that was kind of why I didn't make my list. But honorable mention for sure, and it was a blast. Yeah, that reaction that lady had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that was cool. Awesome. For me, it's A Real Pain. Jesse Eisenberg directs. I really liked it. It's the only film on my list that is not like a high concept, like big action, or big spectacle kind of movie-going experience, but it's movies that I like, dramas, and I like character studies. The way it was directed, I enjoyed. Them acting alongside each other was great. Good chemistry. It's a heavy subject matter, but they were able to put humor in it and sort of make the tough moments more impactful because of that. I enjoyed it. It felt very, very capable film, and like I don't think I've ever seen him direct. I know he did another movie before that, directing wise, but I was curious to see like how he would do that type of film. It's not like the hardest thing to direct, but the way he did it, I would say it is tricky to get that right.
Well, he's in it too, so
and he's in it, yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was, when you said fun, I think that would suffice, because that character Kieran Culkin plays, man, is hilarious. He's hilarious. Oh, yeah. I think he's gonna get nominated probably for that character. Yeah, that film's not. And it's not on my list. That film's not on my list, but I feel like the same way you felt about Alien Romulus. That's definitely like an honorable mention for me, because that was a good time. I guess one of my favorite things about that film is that it just felt sincere and organic. You know what I mean? Like Jesse Eisenberg definitely knows to agree what he's going for and what he's doing with the writing. And it's like such a simple film. You know what I mean? It's two characters that are going to a Holocaust museum. You know what I mean? And they're cousins, and everything is in those two characters. They play off each other. Kieran Culkin is like the the whimsical, random, loser of the family, and Jesse Eisenberg is the complete opposite. And I think the way they made those two play on each other just brought out that comedy wonderfully. On certain scenes, it's flawless, man. Oh, yeah. It's flawless. That guy definitely has more work coming his way. My number 4 is Mad Max Furiosa. Oh, man. Directed by George Miller. Mad Max Fury Road, I thought was great. I remember when I saw that trailer, man. That was, how we always, in trailers, we talk about how we love that, like what is this moment? Yeah. And, by the time you see that sandstorm, it's like, what, George? You bringing us here? Yeah. I am strapped in.
Guys on the spring.
Yeah, the springing back and forth. And what a lovely day. Yeah. It's great. So in this film, what I liked is, I think what some people didn't like about this film is that it still feels like George Miller, but it's a little different. It's more intimate in this one, even though you still had like some of the high flying action scenes, but the I guess the character scope of this one isn't as large as the other, because in the other film, it's a film about Mad Max, of course, and he's taking those people to that land that they're looking for, where water could be. So it's a little bigger in that one, but in this one, it's more about that character Furiosa, which is why it's rightly named, in my opinion, Furiosa. I appreciated Anna Taylor-Joy's silence in that movie.
Yeah.
I think the fact that she was so quiet brought so much of a visual element emotionally to it, because some of those expressions she was making, it's like, they're like gut punches, you know what I mean? They're like, oh, and there's that one scene, they put it in the trailer also, and my buddy Levy, he loves it too, where she sees something going on, and the camera does that George Miller like full digital kind of zoom into her face, and she just clicks and she starts the car and turns around and puts it in reverse. Remember that? Yeah. See, I think that shot just shows so much of what that film is about. You're getting in the head of this character who has this completely tragic past, because much of those Mad Max movies deal with like these tragic apocalyptic events emotionally and morally, and so that character is just like had it. You know what I mean? She's had it. She's been stretched here and there. And so we get to witness her. We're along for that ride to see her get vengeance, for what has happened to her, with the zany acting, the surprising zany acting to me of Chris Hemsworth. That might be one of my favorite villains in a film. Like, he was nuts. Yeah. But like in a whimsical way, and it wasn't Joker-esque. You know what I mean? It was like unique to Chris Hemsworth. I'm like, how did you pull that off? So anyway, and also I just feel like that whole world is so sincere. I think he stayed true to his vision. I think he's going to continue to stay true to his vision in those films that he makes. So that's why that was like my number 4.
It's a solid, that is a solid pick. Number 3 is Civil War. I thought it was great. I've been thinking kind of past few days, like Alex Garland's sort of his filmography, where does it stand? I would put it up there as one of the best. I've always liked him. I've found him when I was younger. I read a book that he wrote called The Beach, and that was made into a movie.
Oh, yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio, right?
Yeah, it was not good. And then 28 Days Later, I was really into that growing up. And Sunshine, I think, is one of the best sci-fis ever made. Civil War, though, I felt like it was a return to form for him. And it kind of, there's scenes that mirror 28 Days Later. And kind of, I like that. I like that he has things he does and he likes to do in his movies. They're fun. Like it's a like that road trip kind of element to that movie, which it is one long road trip movie. The use of colors in that film, the cinematography, I really enjoyed. Kristen Dunst, her performance, her and the young girl who was in Romulus. What's her name?
I can't remember her name right now.
She's interesting. I just kind of tuned into her and I was like, she's good. But I love the contrast between her character and Kirsten Dunst and how they mirrored each other. One was sort of had seen all this war, and they're all war photographers, and so you have Kirsten Dunst, who's sort of on the later in life, her career and how she handles doing this job. And then you have this young upstart who is doing it for the first time and sees the world sort of in this, she's hungry to do it and she's excited to do it. And I think that's a really interesting dynamic. I think it's a really interesting character, like a character type, that all these characters are war photographers. And then you got the setting, which is it's Civil War in America, which, I think it's important to see that, because we don't think of America as a war-torn country, mm-hmm. and that might be a problem, because it could be, which is a scary thought. Hopefully doesn't happen, but is interesting. I've never seen that in a movie before. I know a lot of complaint was geared towards the script was very basic and simple and nothing really happened and stuff. But there are elements there. It's event based, or it's It's scene by scene sort of key moments happen throughout, and you stand back from it and look at like all the scenes and what they're kind of saying. And maybe some of the scenes sort of were just there, but I think to me, they all stood trying to tell a picture of what was going on in these different pockets of places. And I thought it was great. It's all about the tone. It's all about the setting. It's all about the look of it all. And it allowed to kind of get what he was saying. I think it allowed for that to come across a lot more. I thought it was great. It's one of my favorite. And the way it ends, you're seeing them go to the White House to go to an interview with the president. And the president sort of has gone off the deep end a little bit and has done some shady stuff and has caused a lot of turmoil. And like, I think Alex Garland might have been saying something with that. Very interesting. But the movie I really enjoyed.
I don't feel like Alex Garland can pull off what he was trying to pull off. I felt like what he was doing was, I could feel what he was going for, and with the beats and everything, and with kind of being a little obscure, because usually he's not very obscure. Usually, his films are pretty much, and that's not a detriment at all. But usually, his films are pretty obvious what they're about. You know what I mean? But he's really good at kind of showing his characters go through these changes and deal with these kind of moral issues, especially like in Sunshine. But this one, it seemed like he was attempting to be obscure, and I just didn't think he could pull it off. With that said, I thought Kirsten Dunst I loved watching her the entire movie. I don't think there's another character she played like that. So this is like our first time being able to see that kind of character and that very like distraught. You know what I mean? And she was, not only was she distraught, but she was also very, very like tough. She was like tough and sort of masculine in a sense. And usually she doesn't play, roles like that. So I thought she nailed it. She was like the one I enjoyed. And I enjoyed pretty much the acting all around. So performances wasn't what I had a problem with. It was just, like I said, I feel like Alex Garland could pull it off. Like I like the one scene, it's so engaging with, what's Kirsten Dunst's husband's name? What's his name again? Jesse Plemons.
Oh, in real life.
Yeah, in real life. Yeah, in real life.
That scene.
Yeah, the scene he's in, like that scene is incredible, and he can act.
Oh, yeah.
It's shocking, it's disturbing, it's strange. It's just, for me, it didn't fit within like the movie. It was like that scene was just there to creep you out, and it's like, okay, now let's get back on the road to the president. I was like, okay, like what's happening here? I was confused. The directors that can pull off a random scene, but it still feel like it's part of the movie, even if you don't even understand it. It felt like in the random moments of the film, they just felt like they were completely different films at the time. And I feel like he was trying to do this obscure thing, but it just, to me, it just didn't work. It just didn't pull it off. But I mean, whatever, Dylan loved it,
You hate it.
whatever.
Yeah.
Speaking of films that are divisive, that leads me to my number 3.
Yeah.
Which is Joker 2, Folie de Adieu. Yeah, Ado. Folie Adieu. There was a guy on TikTok that said Americans were going to pronounce it wrong, and I guess he was right. I think when you watch Joker from the perspective of understanding where Todd Phillips was going with it, a whole new world, I think, of that film opens up. And now, of course, people can say, well, I don't want to do that. The first one was good. And I understand. That makes sense. But because when I first watched it, I didn't like it as much as I like it now when I first watched it. But after I went and watched both of them back to back, that's when I was like, wow. And I just see it through a totally different light now. I think all of the elements that make the first one work are pretty much still in this one. Maybe not narratively speaking, like maybe not in the sense of a narrative, but what I mean by that is the acting in the first one is just as good as in this one. The cinematography in the first one is just as good as in this one. the tone in the first one is just as good as in this one. Like all of that stuff is consistent to me. But like we know, I understand people didn't like it because it didn't exceed the expectations. But for me, I'm a little more biased, and I look at films from the director's point of view. And I feel like his vision for it, I think he nailed it. I think he nailed his vision for it. Maybe not the fans or the DC Universe's vision, but he nailed his vision for it.
It's on my list. And I'll get into it when I get it. But yeah, I agree. There's so much to that movie that, it makes I wasn't so hot on the first one. I liked the first one. I liked it, but it wasn't, it was an art house comic book movie. I think that's cool. That's cool.
Well, if it's already on your list, why don't you go ahead and go to number 2?
But I'll say number 2 is Furiosa, Mad Max Saga.
It's higher on your list.
It's higher, yeah. I like the fact that it's called, a Mad Max Saga because it opens up that world in a different way to where you see how do these, in Fury Road, they drive past Bulletville and Oil Town or whatever they're called.
Yeah, those are cool.
You see the glimpses of those, but then this one is like, well, we're going to go to those towns.
Yeah.
And we're going to see how they work. And maybe you don't see like a lot, like the extreme details of how they work, but you see more of them. Mm-hmm. And I thought that's cool. I dug the, there's different things. He's an old school director. So seeing him kind of do these like sped up, like goofy, if someone did it, they could do it wrong, but he does it and it's okay the way he does it, it works. The way he introduces, the way it starts like this guy telling a fable. And you're right, like her performance, I love that. I love the look she gave, and like it really is all told from her silent kind of point of view. And you see, and it really does it's so impactful, all those pieces. And I mean, there's some horrible stuff that happens, and her reaction to it makes it even more, because you're like, why aren't you screaming? Like, usually you have a character and they scream, it's a big thing, like, but you almost have to sit in silence yourself and like see what's happening. Yeah. And it makes it even more. So the whole time you're sitting and you're like, get this guy, like get this bad guy. To where you finally get to a moment where they have a pair up and you see it. You just feel it. Like, his performance is probably my favorite. Like easily my favorite of his. It's so good. It's cartoon villainy at its best. This movie was like, yes, like look at what you can do with a big budget. Yeah. Like you can tell your own world and have it and be good. And it's just so good. It's such a good movie. Whoa. Yeah. Have a moment.
My number 2 film for this year, 2004, is Coralie Farge. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it right. Her film, The Substance, with Demi Moore and Margaret, I think Malley is her name.
Qualley.
Margaret Qualley. You're right. I had to put this film on my list because this is easily the most tenacious, the most bombastic in a sense, and the most aggressive film that came out for me in 2024 from an art tour. It is definitely her 100% making a statement, and she's making it known that she's making a statement. And I feel like that kind of filmmaking isn't the niche anymore, unfortunately, or should I say, and it definitely still exists, But I feel like now it's not as sought after as it used to be at one point. You know what I mean? But the way it's done in this, I applaud her. They go to some places. They go to some really, really dark places. But I feel like for that filmmaker, I mean, maybe not for me personally, but I feel like for that filmmaker, she was still being sincere in what she was trying to portray. One of the themes and the messages that she's dealing with is kind of just like our modern society's take on things like celebrity, lust, kind of our modern day infatuation with culture and society, pop culture, just all of that stuff. It's in this whirlwind. She's also, I think, hitting to people that are rich. You know what I mean? A certain understanding of the rich and how rich can, they have the money to do certain things and kind of have these experiments with these extreme things, which is basically what the substance is. It's and it's pretty intense, and I just applaud her. This is my first film that I've seen by her, but it's an unforgettable film. You do not forget this movie after you watch it, and you almost feel like you understand her on a whole nother level. The reason it isn't number one, that it felt so much like a Darren Aronofsky film to me. I kind of feel like she has many influences, but this is the one that was, to me, just stood out more. You can almost watch that film and then watch like Requiem for a Dream side by side. And I feel like the beats and the tone and like the emotional beats and the tone are so similar. As a matter of fact, there's if somebody has ever seen Requiem for a Dream, and this really isn't much of a spoiler, but if you've seen Requiem for a Dream, you've noticed like the part with the needle that he uses a needle that he goes into his arm like every once in a while, and then after a while that arm just gets disgusting and gross. But yeah, this is Requiem for a Dream, right? Crazy movie. But I feel like almost that same look of that arm is the look of some of her body in The Substance. And that's why I'm like, okay, I know where you're getting it from. And so that was one of the only things that I didn't like. And there's one other thing that I didn't like. There's a part at the end of the film, and I'm not going to spoil it, but if you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. It's so engaging. Like even my complaints that I have with it being like Darren Aronofsky-esque, because he is one of my favorite filmmakers. But even in it being like that, it was still engaging, and that's what the props that I give it. There was one point in the film, though, where it completely just lost you. You didn't, you're engaged, and after this moment, you just don't know how to take the film at all. And that was almost the scene right before the ending. And when you're watching it, you're just like, what? Like, what am I supposed to feel? Because it takes you out. Like, just that quick. You just like, okay, I don't know what you're doing, sweetheart. And so that was the only thing that I didn't like about it. Essentially, though, the way it did wrap up and the way it ended and that last shot, the way she does the last shot in comparison to the theme of the film, I thought was just done right. This woman, she's an auteur. She knows what she's doing. She knows what she's going for. I'm excited to see future films of hers in the future if I can take them. Because this one was really intense, but The Substance is like an easy number 2 for me. Like it's yeah.
So my number one, it's gotta be Deadpool versus Wolverine. Folks, we have waited for so long for these two to team up. Filthy mouth, but you love his trash talk, and you love Wolverine. You love to see him.
And not only do you get one Deadpool, you get like an army.
You get a whole army. You get to see him in a different. It's so good. It's not my number one. Right. My number one movie this year is Joker 2. One thing that I found interesting was it makes the first movie better. That's a rare thing to have a sequel.
Yeah, it actually is.
Go back and you look at that movie and be like, I actually like it more now. Because I have problems with the first one that this one addresses, and it addresses the whole thing of like, well, that's not the real Joker, and it does it so wonderfully that I don't really get the complaints people have. I think they're funny, and I think the movie is poking at those people. What it's doing is something that not a lot of movies even have the opportunity to do. You're taking a comic book villain and making a bold statement about people's obsession with comic books, people's obsession with villains, people like glorifying villains, and sort of the past few years with the narrative of, good is bad and bad is good, which I really don't like. This talks about that directly. It's conversations you need to have in movies. Movies aren't just fun and you go and you zone out. No, like there's so much more that movies are, and so as an art form, there is a responsibility to make something that means something.
The reason that film to me is so significant is that nowadays, in a time where superhero movies are just like, topping the box office and just are almost the standard, nowadays, so many, it takes somebody to take that genre, that comic book genre, that superhero film, and use it to make a point on itself. And use it to make a point and say, here, this is what you guys enjoy. Look at the dark side and the truth of what you're actually enjoying. And that's what both Joker films are doing. And then it even kind of manifests itself into how it was really done, because I kind of feel like Todd Phillips wanted to make a film about a crazy person, but the only way to get maybe not the only way, but to get a huge reaction out of it, he had to use a name, which is Joker. I really don't think Todd Phillips was like, I absolutely 100% love the Joker as a character and want to make a movie about it. I mean, maybe, he may have said that, but I think there was a story he wanted to tell. And I think in that story he wanted to tell, he wanted to make a point about modern day cinematic villains. Like what Todd Phillips has said is that, because a supervillain is insane. A supervillain is crazy. And the other thing about Joker is that, to me, when you watch the first film, I don't get the sense that he's really trying to tell a sincere movie, even though I know there are elements in it from the Batman comic books and all of those things, but I really don't think that his focus is that singular when it comes to the comic book. I think he really is wanting us to see the real side of a villain. And so, of course, in the real side of a villain, you have these depressing moments where you realize it's all just a fantasy and that you're really crazy. And that's what happens to him. He's like, I am insane. We just don't see that now. And I think that's why people have such a strong reaction to it. You don't see, and that not at that level, you know what I mean? This is a huge budgeted, film. So that you don't see. That is why, we like that film. And that's why I think that, that's why I tell people, look, I know you were disappointed, but just watch it from a different perspective, My number one film for 2024 was, drum roll please. Oh, thank you. I was going to wait till you got tired, but I guess you
Hey, I used to drum.
Kinds of Kindness by Yorgos Lanthimos. The tone in his films are so consistent and daunting. And actually, the tone in his films makes it to where he is a difficult one. He's so unique in that to where I feel like he's difficult to rip off. Poor Things is the more popular film that he did that I did enjoy as well, but I did not enjoy it nowhere near as much as I enjoyed Kinds of Kindness. And the reason I say that is because I feel like Kinds of Kindness was a film that was him being true to his own filmmaking and also kind of growing from it, because Kinds of Kindness isn't like his other films. Like, it's like, don't get me wrong. In a sense, they are, like I said, because he has a consistent tone. But in other ways, it's more experimental. And I feel like he allowed himself to be stretched a little bit in Kinds of Kindness in many ways. I love the random aspect that in Kinds of Kindness. I love the points where you really don't know what's going on in the film and you don't know what it's about, but you're along for the ride. And that's definitely something that happens consistently in the film. Now, the film isn't very upbeat. It's kind of a downer. But I do agree and like the point that he is making when it comes to Kinds of Kindness. You know, kind of the questioning of what is a truly kind person. I mean, I don't think he's particularly going for that definition, but just showing how humanity's obsession with doing the right thing and where does that cross the line? Where does it stop? Now, that's something that's in many of his films. He always likes to present his characters with like moral dilemmas, which is what's fun to watch and engaging. But Jesse Plemons' character and of course Kinds of Kindness has 3 parts to it, and his character in the first short story, I guess so to speak, that you bring, it's just Jesse Plemons plays that so well, and to watch that guy just be so hopelessly wanting somebody's approval, you know what I mean? And bringing that character in that and just making you feel that hopelessness and desperation in being approved, in wanting validation, which is another theme that the film deals with. Watching him pull that off was very, very, very satisfying. So much so to where you really have a disdain for William Dafoe's character in that first one. My favorite one is the second one. And the reason being is because I feel like that second one was such an interesting love story between those two. And kind of this, I wouldn't say twisted way, but it demonstrates like an offbeat way of showing two people that have a love that kind of transcends so many things. And the way Yorgos is dealing with it, he's dealing with it in his own Yorgos sort of way. And I think he pulls it off because, you know, you have a character that just knows that his wife isn't who he married. You know, and watching, once again, it's Jesse Plemons watching that character sort of know that and go to these extremes to or allows these extremes to kind of demonstrate that they pull it off. And I mean, and so this is, I don't think there was a film that touched, even though the substance was daring and its approach, I don't think it touched anywhere near as daring as Kinds of Kindness was. I feel like Kinds of Kindness blew Poor Things out of the water. Because I feel like Poor Things was Yorgos having fun, but I feel like Kinds of Kindness was Yorgos really, really, even, I feel like Kinds of Kindness, Yorgos is physically working out an internal questioning that he has. And that, to me, that's just like relatable on all kinds of ways. And watching him do that through the performances and everything, I just thought it was fantastic. So that was probably that's my top film for 2024.
I didn't like it. But the more I've thought about it, the more I appreciate what he's doing. So when I watched it, I just it was really dark, and I kind of was frustrated already with sort of Hollywood talking about things that I've got complications with Hollywood, but I also think that maybe they do need to talk to themselves about. You know, they do need to they need to make movies for themselves, not just for other people. But even within that, there's still, like, even if you don't know that world, then there's enough in that movie that I think you can reflect on. And yeah, I'm a huge fan of that director. Yeah, he's good.
Oh, Yorgos.
Yeah. He's definitely one of the only kind of, these days, like, he's an indie filmmaker. There's not a lot of like indie filmmakers on that level that are making like big things, and he's one of them. He's one of my favorites.
So those are our top 5 films of 2024. And once again, we are A Place Pictures. Please stay tuned. Continue to visit this channel as we will be adding podcasts. We will be adding reviews. And also, if you would like, you can see previous films that me and Dylan have written and directed.
Like, share, subscribe, do all that, comment, engagement. all that fun stuff, all those buzzwords.
All
Do
the
it.
buzzwords, yes. Smash that like button. Well, don't smash it, but
Gently press
Yeah.
that like button.
you only got to click the mouse a little bit just to hit the like. So we don't want to present that you have to extend yourself to like our stuff. Just click the like button.